I thought he might have been here right now, but he'll be along, I'm sure.
Yeah, we can start it.
Did you ask him to be here tonight?
I did.
Okay. Is he scheduled next?
So we're doing the airport tonight too?
Assuming he shows up.
Okay, I'd just like to give you an overview of this budget before we start and let you know one thing. This budget is a very finite budget. This is an estimate of what the budget will look like, but we won't actually know what is available to spend until I set the mill rate. Because basically the mill rate times the value we capture is the budget. So at that time, if it comes in less than I estimate, then I go through the departments and I cut them so it meets that amount of money we're collecting. So this is definitely a draft, and if you see the numbers are different, you know, when the figures on what we spent and stuff from last year, that's because when I do set the commitment, I actually give Melissa the actual numbers in the adjusted budget figures. So I just want you to know that this is definitely going to change because it's going to be dependent upon what the mill rate is and what the end assessment is. But you can help make recommendations of where you'd like to see the changes made.
Ruth, at one point, I think last year, you provided a spreadsheet showing your anticipated TIF income over a given period based on depreciation of the projects.
Yeah.
You still have that?
I have that somewhere, yes. It's probably in the original TIF contracts because they have to do that projections
Right.
on those. And they wouldn't change from last year because they run the same because they're anticipated over the length of the contract. So the only one that would have changed, and I should have provided you the updated one last year, would be Bangor Gas, because as you know, we just renewed that. And it has a different increment than it did originally.
But like you just said, it's based on what you come up with for a mill rate.
It's based on projected mill rates over the years.
Mhm.
So you might look at that projection sheet and the mill rates might not be the same as what the actuals were.
So do you straight line from this year out? Do you straight line like the 20.56, whatever the mill rate is? now?
No, what I do is when I look at the municipal budget, I basically add anywhere from 5 to 10%. And then I calculate what I anticipate is going to be the total amount. And then I adjust it when we actually come up with the definite figure. But yes, no, I never use the same figures year to next because the budget never stays the same.
Yep.
I
So,
should say the mill rate never stays the same.
so if you do have to make adjustments, do you do it on each activity or do you pick and choose?
I do it on each department based upon what we spend the year before and where I see it can be the easiest shaved, I guess is the best word to say. You know, because like events, and when you look at events, this is Sean's wish list over what he's got for estimated costs for the upcoming year. Now, if I look at that and, you know, I see, as you can see, there's quite a significant increase for Loon Festival. That would be an area where I would look at that and put it back to last year's amount and tell him he needs to go out and solicit more donations to cover it. So if he wants to spend that amount, he'll be told he can't unless he raises the money on his own.
Who reviews his budget on the Loon Festival? You the only one that look at that, or?
Normally, I send it out to a TIF committee, but the TIF committee is supposed to be appointed with everybody else in January, and we haven't done that for the past few years. And I've just been sending it out to the committee members that were appointed several years back. So I think that needs to be revisited because they give me some valuable input.
So has the question ever come up whether we're getting a return on investment with Loon Fest?
All the time, and the answer to that is no.
From a money point of view is no. The question is, does it help the community's knowledge and the community's vision and the view of the community outside the community? And does that bring us other things other than direct cash? And I think the answer there is yes.
Based on,
Based on people going into the stores on Main Street, based on the number of people that show up here during these events, who are people who would not otherwise be here.
Based on the inquiries we get, when is Loon Festival, because we're planning our vacation around it to come to Lincoln during that time. A lot of different factors contributed to it. But Loon Festival, the history of Loon Festival is it was formerly homecoming and it was run by volunteers. In the 1990s, they approached the town council and said it had gotten too big and it was too much for volunteers to run on their own. They didn't have the staffing, they didn't have the volunteers. So at that time, the town took it over. When it was known that it was an approved TIF expense, when we first established the first TIF in 2006, the Loon Festival went under the TIF account, with the idea that once that TIF ended, because TIFs have a contract period, that there would be a reserve account established, so there would be a fund there to continue Loon Festival, not at taxpayers' expense. So all of the vendor fees that come into the Loon Festival are put in a reserve account to accrue interest. So when we no longer have TIFs, we have a pool of money that we can use that isn't collected but from the taxpayers to fund Loon Festival and make it happen.
Also, many towns in Maine, many not so far away from us, do run events. I am able to ask myself the question, is promoting events and spending money to promote events a worthwhile effort? But I can make you a list of towns that think it is, and they do some similar things. So I guess based on the overall judgment there, it probably is worth doing.
I do know that the goal of the Community Events Committee, which works specifically with the events coordinator, is to have an event a month. And the idea is to have these events pay for themselves. And they have some that have done very well at doing that. They have others that have fallen a little short, but the one that is always maintained and been a pay event is the Loon Festival.
do we know what's making up the 35% increase this year on the Loon
Sean
Festival?
is in the other room. If you look at his itemized list that he has, he can answer any questions on that. But if you look at his activities that he has listed, Sean, do you have a copy of this?
I don't. You can borrow mine.
Okay, I think it's mostly cost increases with bands and stuff.
Yeah, so the big one is, sorry, I hear myself as an echo. I'm gonna be doing a Friday and a Saturday night, decent show. So in the past, we tried to do Friday night shows and they fell a little flat, so I'm spending more money to get different bands. And Friday, I'm gonna be doing a country concert. It's gonna be opening up with Josiah Dyer. He's a local country star who's up and coming, who's at September Fest, people walk in. And then Kayla Loss is gonna come back, but she's gonna bring a full band from Nashville on Friday. And then Saturday is going to be Aftershock, a local classic rock band, and then the Jacob Smalley band too. And the reason why I did that is because like last year what I saw here is Friday was a little light towards the evening. So it's kind of like everyone just came for Saturday versus Friday. So I figured if I could turn it into a weekend event and would come here Friday, do what they do in town and everything like that, it would just be another day that we could share that income throughout the town. Because I mean, every restaurant that I talk to about it on Moonfest, they say that they are packed. All the grocery stores say that that's the number one weekend that they look forward to. Just because the increase in traffic in town. The other one that I went up on was the fireworks. It was just that we were 5,500 is the minimum amount for a fireworks show. I was talking to the fireworks coordinator, and he said pretty much $7,000 is what Bar Harbor does. And everyone says about how great Bar Harbor has a great fireworks show. And that was the bands on Friday and Saturday and the fireworks are the number one things I'm trying to get sponsors for, to name it after them, so then that way it'll just cover its costs. So granted, there's an increase, but I'm also projecting an increase in revenue as well. Because in the past, we haven't solicited the sponsorships that I'm doing this year, so.
What's your anticipated sponsorship? Do you anticipate you'll get?
So far, as it stands right now, I already have $5,000 in, and they have until I give them to June 1st for a deadline. And I just sent them out like 2 weeks ago. So if the projections continue, I would say probably at least 10 to 15,000, hopefully.
Is that for the, the whole moon festival or just the fireworks?
It would be the whole Wood Festival.
Money is for.
Yeah, and then, but you can sponsor like the fireworks show. So in other words, if, the Hannaford wanted to have the fireworks show sponsored by Hannaford, they could.
Okay.
Same thing with like the Friday night bands. The reason why I haven't announced it is because it will be like the stage, but like the Why Not Stop stage. Okay? So if you go to like these big festivals, that's how they make their money, is through sponsorships and saying, you can sponsor the stage, if you go to, like Warped Tour, for example, they have multiple stages, and each stage is sponsored by a different business. So that's kind of what my idea was, is that Friday and Saturday, the stage could be like named after a business. Because those are the big events that people are going to come for. Okay? And then the other one too is that, like sponsorships on the back of our staff shirts. That's prime real estate. That's another one of the options for the sponsorships. There's one that you just get a yard sign outside of the stage, plain and simple. So there's different tiers that I'm going for rather than just one tier. So. And to Rick's point, other towns do this, and to be honest with you, that's where I stole all these ideas from. Is looked at what other towns do: Trails End Festival in Millinocket, Riverfest in Old Town, Moxie Fest, Blueberry Fest. And when I looked at, that's also why I went up on vendor fees too, is I looked at all these towns and what they charge and how they raise these funds. And that's, like I said, I was running into, we're not a 501c3. So Versant turned me down right away. Poland Spring would donate water, but they can't donate monetary, because we're not a 501c3. So eventually, the thought process is that if we can have a 501c3 run Loon Fest, then we might be able to solicit other donations, but that's not this year.
That's gonna be my question. Can we just start a 501c3 to
I
kind
would
of be
think,
the,
I would think we would do it as the events committee would create
Yeah,
themselves as a nonprofit to do that.
yeah, it's something that it's kind of not for this year's Loon Fest, but maybe next year. Something that you want to look into.
since, again, I don't know how it all works legally, but I imagine some of the costs of the town could sponsor, but then the cost.
That's what the, it's one of the.
Yeah.
They also run through like the Chamber of Commerce, for example, too, is the chamber. I know like in Trails End and Millinocket, a lot of like the town handles it, but also the chamber does it.
The big difference on the bands is if you're gonna do more on Friday night.
So we'll still have our stuff in the square here as well. But then like last year, I told Frank to just keep on going all night, and it was just like kind of people just kind of scattered. But I figured, if I could duplicate to some extent what I do on Saturday to Friday as well, then we could get, a crowd down there.
But most of that band is like at the junior high.
Yep.
Most of the separate ones, the bands in the square.
Yeah, and the bands in the square is an estimate. Probably, I did put it a little high just because band prices are going up, especially if I haven't traveled from anywhere. So I like to use as local bands as possible, but what I realize is that if you have the same bands play every event, then people, you can see them again. So make it special for Little Fest.
I think in addition to this, we have costs for the police and fire that covers these festivals as well.
So that is on the next page, I believe, or page before.
Page 4.
Yeah, for fire and police.
That's really not as high as it's been in the past. That's reduced significantly because Sean noticed that the police and fire were putting events in their budget as well.
I see.
So that covers very specific things that weren't in their budget. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
This is not double dipping. This is like we used to have like 8,000 and 9,000 in here, and we discovered that they were taking it, budgeting it in their department. And it's like, no, we're not gonna double budget here.
Where should it be? Should it be here?
It
or
should-
Be there. When I was looking at the whole thing,
I think it's
I
just,
thought it was displaced in the police budget.
I think it's just a matter that, they didn't realize. It's gonna be based upon
Right.
what the end
For
budget is, but
consistency and the ability to look from year to year, it should be. He's got 21,000 in his for events wages.
He's got 12,000 for Loon Fest, so that's 10 staff at 24 hours. So I'll have to talk with him because I'm not gonna need.
Yeah. So at your recommendation, we'll have Sean go over and talk to the police department
Yeah.
and move those wages where they should be.
You probably, I mean, how many police do we usually have on?
We
historically?
usually have just the police, is we have them a couple for the Friday night, and then we have a couple more at the Cobb Field on Saturday. But other than that, we really,
I'm gonna say, I mean, it's just thinking. that-
they're in the parade detail at the front and at the back, but most of the time, no, it's just regular
You only
traffic,
have 2 on set, like 2 on.
right,
staff.
during the day. Well,
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
most, you only have 2 more on Friday and Saturday
yeah, it's just like
at night.
tent setups and things like that. We try to do it during regular hours, so we're not paying overtime wages. It doesn't make sense to pay overtime wages. So, a lot of the vendors and stuff, they're on duty anyway.
That's what I thought, one was very high.
Yeah.
compared to what we
Yeah, that
usually-
Yeah.
I can go down there and talk with them about it and figure out exactly what.
You might want to talk to Les too.
Plus you got the fire department during the fireworks.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to fire them down, it's, for the fireworks, but, in the past, the police chiefs in the past did not have traffic detail after the fireworks because they said that they found it's not necessary. People weave out with no incidents. They've had no incidents. So for the past, I'm gonna say 2 or 3 years, we haven't had police doing traffic control after the
Right.
fireworks.
They had them after the river drivers supper.
They do that for pedestrian
Right,
concerns.
right.
And they are there and they will be there
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people that will park on the side of the road and walk. And so they're there for that reason, but yes, you're right, they do the river drivers.
Yeah, when I asked last year about it, because I was coordinating volunteers, he said just let it go and it works out so much easier that way.
He's talking the fireworks, not,
Yeah.
River drivers, yeah.
I don't think Les did not put in that wages in his budget.
So I can talk to him about
Yeah, okay.
an accurate number for that.
So Sean is events and communications. So if you have any questions for those budgets, they should be directed to him. I'm just here for historical backing because at one time during my tenure here, I was also event supervisor and events coordinator. So I do have a little historical knowledge.
Well, I wanted to meet who it was.
Huh?
I didn't know. When I was reading through it, it said event coordinator. I said, who's our event coordinator? Who's running that?
That's me.
Yeah, she knew. It's good to know.
Give me 1 second, he's got to adjust the mics real quick.
That's why there's no additional salary. Because it's all,
I guess I'd throw out there that perhaps we see what Sean can do on the sponsorship and increase the budget based on his success with the sponsorship.
The only thing is I won't know until first.
That's okay, we don't approve this till July.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, this will
Yeah.
get the quick into it.
and this won't necessarily, you'll have some of this year's Moon Festival, you've already done a deposit
Yeah.
on the fireworks and stuff, so some of it is coming out of this year's budget.
What were you thinking about for New Year's Eve event?
Yeah, so, the biggest cost for that would be like a night sculpture, night carver. It's about $600 to have that. So I was thinking about something right up here. Just food trucks, maybe countdown to midnight. Yeah, he was sent around about dropping with a balloon that's wrapped up in Christmas lights, doing something to just have something here for New Year's.
Do they make inflatable ones?
They do. They're full. They're,
You know, he's already looked it up.
Knocks going on for the riders. The raffle went off last year at Loon Fest, and I was really mad I didn't get it.
Okay, learn something new every day.
It's battery operated lights.
So the Shriners charge you to bring your buddies up?
Yeah. It's about $300 to $400 per chapter. Some of them are a little bit more, but on average, that's about.
I will say that the Shriners are really a definite part of the parade. And all of those proceeds that we pay them go to the Shriners Hospital. They don't go to the individuals. It's a fundraiser thing for them, and people have learned to expect the Shriners in the parade.
And certain shrines as well.
On the next page, there's no page number, but say that you increase the contract line item to cover marketing and advertising. I don't see any increase. So what am I looking at? Other than, is that an old note?
No, it's not an old note, because he actually had marketing in there twice, but I think you're looking at communications.
Yeah, she's under economic development.
She's under economic development.
Yeah. So there's contracts, and it said last year was 2,000, and the department request is 2,000, and the note says we have increased it to
He
cover.
did increase it, I took it out. He had 2 line items in there. And when we sent it out, I took out the 2 line items, because I said you can't have 2 line items, it's gonna generate questions. Yeah,
Is that,
but you had, because we had 2250.
What page you
Oh,
on?
so that note doesn't,
It doesn't apply anymore, I didn't take the note out.
What page you on?
there's not a page number. At the top it says 0016, miscellaneous economic development.
yeah.
Yes.
Double in there.
Okay.
He doubled it, he had 2 line items, one for 2,000 and one for 2250, and I took the 2250 out, but I did not take the note out, and I should have.
And then on the next page, 0032, why is the CAI web hosting and map update 0?
That would be me. I think I put in the total amount, not those amounts.
Okay,
I will add those amounts in. That would be my entry error.
so will it be higher than 24?
Contract is the same.
Just give the breakdown, okay. And then why did, on the next page, 0033,
Yep.
why did Spectrum Internet jump?
Because we put fiber cable through the building, and to make it more, these meetings and stuff better, and because in my OGIS software, was not compatible to not having fiber in the building, so I couldn't update the E911 and add the roads and things, so it was a necessary thing. So, I added the cost to the TIF budget.
Will this be 4,500 per year going forward until the technology changes and we don't use fiber anymore?
Probably. Mhm, probably.
Well, if Fidium gives us a better deal.
But I can't not have
Yeah,
things that I can use.
no, I thought that was the case. I just want to clarify it for,
Yeah, when I have the fire department call me and say, when I know I've kept it, at least not maybe all the address pins on there.
Yeah.
got all the roads updated and they say they're not there, and then I look and it's like the guy at OGIS said, oh, I deleted them because your stuff was all over the place.
Thanks.
Yeah. Great. I love doing things twice.
Have you talked to Vivian yet about person?
Fidium?
Yeah.
No, we just got this, with Spectrum 6 months ago. I've got to look at how long we locked in to Spectrum before we even think to switch to Fidium. Because that just came available like a week or two ago.
Yeah.
But
Because
I do hear that Fidium is much less expensive than Spectrum.
well, just looking at the business,
Yeah, because that's what we have right now is the enterprise maybe for Spectrum, which is more than business. Uh-huh.
Mm.
Uh-huh. 'Cause I had this, we had the business internet. It was not, that's what she was having issues on. So we switched to the Spectrum Enterprise for the fiber.
what are you getting for speeds for fiber? Gig down, gig up, or
I think so.
You have 2 gig.
I say just on Fidium, it's $90 a month, so you'd be saving.
Oh, yeah,
For
we
$300.
saved a lot. It just wasn't available when we
Yeah.
needed to make this switch.
That's the business side of it.
So I will talk to the guys across the street in the basement over there, and I will look at our contract we did with Spectrum to see if we can switch anytime soon without penalty.
Yeah.
And I have to contact for you.
I
I don't know where you live.
Literally, I can see the whole.
Yeah, I said, I could see the trucks from my house and I reminded them of that.
I will say,
We all keep calling, that will help, because I've called
That's
too.
the thing. I've been calling, yep, just keep
Yeah.
calling them.
Right.
I will say that if you have Spectrum mobile service, which is actually a pretty good deal, it's $30 a month for individuals, that you can't give up your Spectrum internet and continue with Spectrum mobile. So if you go to Fidium, you've got to go to something like Mint or something else in order to offset that.
Spectrum.
Yeah,
They won't tell you that when they talk to you.
We don't use that here. Bow landings. Is that lovely picture of Long Pond, the $10,000 this year?
Oh, something was that. You're gonna do a whole.
Was a new boat landing went in on Long Pond? Was that a town boat landing?
No. There was a new wharf that went in on Long Pond that was budgeted for.
But it, was it an aluminum dock?
It was aluminum with wood. It was aluminum frame with wood
Yeah.
planking.
Yeah.
That was Long Pond and that was budgeted for last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is for,
This is for expanding further, taking out the wood docks from Mallett's Mill that keep needing more and more repair. And the idea is to eventually convert to the aluminum because of how long they
Yeah.
last.
and they're lighter.
And they're lighter and they're easier to put in and easier to take out, and you don't get splinters, you don't get popping nails, you don't get any of that. So this is kind of a request from the rec department that again, if something gets cut, something like this will be one of the things that gets cut.
So for the boat landing, that's for wharfs only, that's not for repair of boat landings?
It's
Like the-
for both,
Oh, okay,
it's for both.
okay,
It's for all things associated with the horse. It's for repair, it's for a new one, it's for, in the boat landings, budget line item is for the road maintenance fees from a couple road associations that we have.
I will say, after you guys chipped in to fix the top of Folsom Pond, even though we didn't do it the premium way, it's really lasted well, and I think this is our third year driving on it. This will be our third summer.
So that's great,
So
especially with all the rain we've had.
it's held well for where it was and how it was done, and because, you know, they wanted an extra 10 or 15,000, we did the bargain route, but it, between everyone pitching in, that one part of the road is held up nice.
Good.
Cemetery, Parks and Recreation, is that just kind of formula that you use based on what you have money available for? Or-
No, this is information that's given to me by the rec director. And this basically, professional development covers the, cost of training WSI instructors for the beach, because the beach, the public beach is considered an economic development draw. And the equipment rental is the portable toilets that go around to, different playgrounds and things like that for the summer. Main Street flags, the flags that you see, the American flags that you see on the telephone poles. Signs, that's for maintenance and repair of like the public park signs and the signs that come into town, etc. The boat landings, again, that is for, we cut this back last year. It's back up at 10 because we added money to try to upgrade some of the existing boat landings like Stump Pond, and there's a couple others that could use a little work. So that's what that is for. The wages that you see here, Parks and Rec's wages, covers the lifeguards. It covers the cemetery parks and rec workers when they do any weeding, mowing, planting, cleanup on the Main Street area, because that's covered under the Rollins Wind TIF. The Main Street plantings, that's pretty much your mulch and your seasonal flowers that go in the buckets down on Main Street. And we already covered the wharfs and buildings, grounds, and maintenance is, could be brackets on the poles for the flags, could be, new barrels for downtown, could be new brackets for the banners that deteriorate with wind, etc. Those types of items.
West Broadway bond,
The West Broadway bond is the bond issue that we passed for the widening of West Broadway. And that bond is the Bangor Gas TIF, the proceeds from that are targeted to pay as much of that bond payment on an annual basis. So that is primarily what the Bangor Gas TIF pays, is that bond payment. And if there isn't enough of the Bangor Gas TIF, then Rutland's Wind takes the difference.
do you anticipate the total bond will be 47, and you think that's how much? that
No,
Bangor
that's
Gas
how
will
much,
not
the
cover?
47 is how much the Rollins Wind TIF will pay. The annual payment is, I believe it's 79,000.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
And we're about halfway through on that bond.
and the Bangor Gas TIF will pay the residual.
How did the Rollins tip increase? I thought they always declined.
The assessment declines, but that doesn't mean that the TIF doesn't decline, because if your budget goes up and your mill rate goes up, then that's depreciating, you get a higher mill rate. So that's why you get an
Okay.
increase, which is why this year we had a significant decrease, because the year before we were at 25.72. Well, of course, this doesn't increase to offset a decrease in the mill rate. So what happened was, instead of multiplying that value by 25.72, I multiplied it by 2060, which resulted in a decrease in the TIF budget.
Right, but it went from 659 to 661. That's an increase.
On page 14.
Page 14.
Oh, that's my 10% added.
Oh,
That's my 10% added over last year. See,
So
that's
last year-
last year's, and this is my department request anticipating that increase.
okay.
So
So it may be less.
That's your crystal ball.
That's my crystal ball, and my crystal ball may crack when I set the mill rate, and it may be less.
so you're anticipating the mill rate go up 10%?
I'm not anticipating that. It's guessing. I'm anticipating that it's going up. By how much, I don't know.
Well, you just said 10%, so
I said 10%. That's
What her big toe told her, given what she knows.
That's what I'm,
Yeah.
that's what I'm guessing, yes.
combined with the depreciation,
Yes.
it could be 12%.
Could be.
What's in the contractual service?
Are you under economic development?
Yeah.
The guys are jumping around a little bit on me.
Sorry.
It's, 235.
Okay, that is Steve Levesque's salary, that is my salary, that is engineering costs with Haley Ward, that is legal costs with Eaton Peabody, that is, other environmental studies that have, are deemed necessary at the mill that aren't covered under, grants that we currently have. So it encompasses a lot of different things. And I left that the same this year because we have been so successful in getting grants that I've built in some administrative costs, so we will have some money to work with. So I don't anticipate that one needs to go up.
I have one that should go up. I hate to say it, but
So, yeah,
the dams, there's not enough money soaking away.
Faintly enough.
it's not enough money, but we do have a grant that I have applied for through FEMA for $650,000 to the that we should hear.
And we only need 6 or 8.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
One at a time.
Right.
We should hear, from what I understand, we should hear, anytime this month or the 1st of June.
Okay.
Because that was the same type of grant that was the stormwater grant that I got the 70,000 for. The only
Okay.
difference is the 70,000 was under the community resilience program. So they made their announcements first and they held back on FEMA grants pending the federal government's decision. So they're anticipating they'll release those decisions in May or June.
Have we got the engineering study back? To look at what the cost is actually gonna be?
Partial,
On some dams or?
well, Stump Pond in particular.
Okay.
That the grant specifies what work will be completed, and the priority, I can tell you, is the Upper Pond Dam.
So we're having a third engineering study done?
No, this is the same engineering study that was used, but we prioritize
Okay.
projects based upon that report to apply for the grant, and then the next grant round will apply for the next priority based upon that report.
So the upper pond is in worse shape, the dam is in worse shape than Stump?
It's not in worse shape as, it's not in a worse condition as Stump. But the ramifications of the Upper Pond Dam breaking
Right,
are far greater
right.
than the dam that's already in bad shape.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Mhm. And there are other grants available for that dam that we're looking into that we may be able to apply for through the DOT because that directly affects a major road crossing. So we're looking into that and putting it together with road repair, necessary road repair because of the effects of the spillway of the breached dam. So we're trying to be creative to get more money through grants for those purposes.
And how many dams does the town of Lincoln have now?
The town of Lincoln owns 9 dams.
We don't have the price though for Upper Pond repairs.
They won't have a price until they do their studies that are included in that grant. And that's part of it. They gotta do hydraulics, all kinds of different, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to tell that, I'm gonna mix the words all up and not tell you appropriately, but I understand there's a lot of work that they have to do in studying the soils around the dam to come up with a plan to stabilize it and everything. This is what they're gonna be doing. So
So we haven't even done that yet.
when we get the grant, we'll have to go out to bid.
Well, I thought the study was already done.
The study was already done. This is based upon Haley Ward's recommendations from the study. But once they get the grant for the work that they've identified that needs to be done, then we have to go out to bid. It's not a given, it's gonna be Haley Ward that does that actual work.
And when you say go out to bid, what you really mean is go out to bid for design. Then you gotta go out to bid
For
for
final
construction
design.
afterwards.
Right,
There's 2
Right.
phases to it.
right. This won't cover the construction part.
Right.
This is gonna cover basically the studies and the design. And then the next phase will be the construction part. Then we'll move on to another dam based upon the criteria. Yes.
Are you gonna use Haley Ward for that design?
Not
No,
necessarily.
not necessarily. If it's a grant, even the design will have to go out to bid. Every aspect of every grant has to go out to bid.
Yeah.
It's a requirement. Whenever you get federal money, you have to go out to bid and you have to advertise the bid, etc.
No sole source, like they do in Augusta.
If you send out bids and you only get one
One
bid
response.
back, one response, you can grant it to that individual. Yes. But we've only had that happen in one occurrence. So
Do we have right of ways to all the names?
do we have right of ways to all of the dams? I'm not sure how to. I know that all the dams owned by the town of Lincoln, we have right of ways to. We have an easement to one dam that we don't own that gives us right of access for purpose of repair and maintenance. We do not, however, have an easement to or any right of repair and maintenance on Little Round Pond because that's controlled by the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. And the one dam that we don't own, that we have an easement for repair and maintenance, is the one owned on private property on the Big Narrows.
That's been rebuilt.
That was rebuilt several years ago. I'm gonna have to say it happened after 2006, and it was probably at least 10 years ago because my memory, it's like time flies
It
by.
was around 2014,
I was working here, so it was.
and I was here.
Yeah, and that was a very good project because we had a dam breach. And the Big Narrows Road Association, they don't call themselves the Big Narrows Road Association, but their road association, they had an engineer who lived on the lake that volunteered his engineer design services, so we got that for free. We actually had contractors that lived on that lake that volunteered their equipment and their labor to do the repairs. And so all we basically had to do was pay for materials and other things to get the dam fixed. So that was a very good joint project by volunteers and the town of Lincoln. And it's held really well. Not that you asked for that history, I just gave it to you.
So last week, when Ruth was not here, a suggestion was made that falls into your bailiwick. So just gonna
Oh, Lord.
see what you think
I'm
about
just
it.
gonna brace myself right now.
Don't be scared.
Another feather in your hat.
I'll let Mr. Dwelly explain it. Because I actually thought it was a good idea, and I got another layer for it.
Okay,
We're talking about
Yeah,
catching up on assessing.
yeah.
okay, this conversation tonight is for the TIF budget. It's not for assessing.
Oh, I thought we were done with TIP.
So does that mean it's an open forum at that point?
Well, what happened so I missed a couple of meetings because I was traveling. And I was supposed to be secretary and take notes. And so we had a discussion about all the budget. So I've come prepared tonight with my summary of those. No, don't get scared. This is just a worksheet. But the one idea while you were present, I just wanted you to hear. I'm not keeping you.
Okay.
It won't take more than 5 minutes because it's so simple, it's brilliant.
we just discussed ideas on what we can possibly do to catch you up on this. I think if there was some way to have, once you had a town map, whoever had time or whatnot, go around and say, there's a house that's not on the map, and try to give you a list, just to try to make it easier. And it's
And
quite an
who-
area to cover.
And who would that person be?
That's what we were trying to figure out.
So the refinement to that idea, which I thought that was good, and because nobody wants to rat out their neighbors specifically. But you could look at Google Maps, wouldn't be 100%, it would be perfect. It's like NextGov does it in Los Angeles.
I do.
We're a little smaller.
I do that. I look at real estate listings, and I do that at least twice, 3 times a month, once a week.
But didn't you, maybe I misheard you, I thought you made the statement that there are houses out there that have been missed.
There are houses, okay, I'm just gonna say this like it is. I didn't wanna do this, I didn't wanna say this, but we had a period of time where we had a code enforcement officer who was employed as code officer for 5 years. Upon his departure, we found stacks and stacks of building permits that did not get passed on to the tax assessor. We also found that that stack was not complete because we had several people come in and say, oh, I need an address for this property. And I'd say, what do you mean you need an address for this property? There's no building there. Oh, yeah, we built a building. And I looked at them and said, no permits? They said, we tried. We came in 5 times to get a hold of the code officer. We finally just got frustrated and built it. So if there's one person, there's more than one person out there.
Yeah, so this is not a throw anybody under the bus situation. It's like, do you or do you not believe that there's multiple unseen, unknown
I know there is.
garages and, okay.
I know
So
there
the
is.
idea was to have some people, and yes, we haven't identified them, help you identify where they are, knowing that your day is full. So his idea was to have whoever go out and ride around and compare them to the tax map. And then my refinement on it was to just have somebody that's all they're doing is looking at Google Maps and making a list.
That will be helpful, but I will tell you that the Google Maps are done when there's crown cover. And there's a lot of times where there's crown cover that hides the buildings. So it will help, but you won't get them all.
Right. But just as an interim stopgap before we can get the RFPs out for the reeval, which, I keep hearing 2-3 years, 3-4, I mean, as a stopgap. Just an idea, that's all.
We was just trying to come up with ideas that would help catch you up, because we know you was easily economic development.
Well, it's, yes, it's.
That would help with buildings, but it wouldn't help her find out who built decks and garages, because we wouldn't know that.
You
But it
could,
would at least identify buildings.
you could, because when the
Right.
person goes around, they can say structured deck outbuilding.
Oh, on your thing? Oh,
They can
okay.
do it on their notes, and then I can check the card, and if there's no outbuildings,
Oh,
that
okay.
gives me a clue.
And I understand, there are a few crazy volunteers in town, and there's probably a few more. When you're looking, are you making a face?
I've already been riding up and down my road. I've already ratted them out.
So anyway, that was just one suggestion. So, for what it's worth, but I thought it was,
I'm gonna
Good
tell you, your
suggestion.
most problematic areas are your more rural areas. Because they're harder to see, because like, for instance, there's Whispering Pine Road that I've been down and picked up cabins that I didn't know existed, but then you've got gates that lock the access to them. And it's like, when you're trying to ride around for an afternoon and pick up as much as you can.
right,
If you stopped at every gate that's on that road, it would
Right.
take you a lot longer time. So that's why we thought the drone would be good, because if we came to those areas, we could fly the drone over and at least see
right.
where
Yeah.
there's a structure.
Yep.
But somebody also mentioned maybe hiring Webb McCormick to kind of do that on a couple shores and then come back and I can look at the video and see in those rural areas. That would be extremely helpful. Because you can take that aerial and follow right along the shoreline of the map and figure out where people are and know where you've got to go back and see.
Well, if you got water body, you can actually put a kayak in and drop it on camera.
I used to do that. I used to get a volunteer that would take me out in the more rural areas and drive me around in a boat to see these properties on a regular basis. Those were my good days of assessing, because it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go out on a boat all day. I'm good with that.
We're trying to take this off your plate, not give you a boat ride.
Well, I like those boat rides. It's like, it's not that I don't like doing that. It's just time-wise. For instance, like I said, today I spent 6 hours on a federal website trying to convince this grant we have, one question on if 3 endangered species over at the mill site is going to be affected by a project we're doing. And 6 hours on that website, and I had other things scheduled for that day, and it's like, it had the deadline is tomorrow. So I had to get it done today. So, you can't anticipate those things happening. They just do. And those are days when I send Steve Levesque an email saying, I quit. I'm done. Exactly. Yeah.
So this guy goes around lakes and kayaks all the time. Ooh, this guy.
Oh, this guy?
Huh?
The dam down at the mill site roof, where there's development going on.
We have a CDS grant to do infrastructure that we're waiting on the contract. We've got 3.5 million. And part of that is cooling water for biofine. And in order to get them cooling water, we'll have to do renovations and repair on that.
Are they gonna use a lot of water like the mill used to?
Yes, they are.
So are we gonna look at down the road, you taking boards out during the summer to feed them water?
May have to.
We may have to at times. We may have to. I will say that the mill did that for years. They did that for years, and I only remember a couple instances where the water level went down to a point where people complained. So I'm hoping that once, we get the infrastructure back in, we fill up that mill pond, so it just keeps replenishing. If you drive by and notice, those of you who have been around as long as I have, you will remember that mill pond used to be very full, and right now it's not. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
Say that's where you see it the most is right from the library. That's always, I used to go fishing out there.
Yeah.
And these like eagles too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, hopefully we'll build up that retention pond, so it will operate much like Lincoln Paper and Tissue did. They're not gonna use as much water as Lincoln Paper and Tissue, because I'll tell you, when they told me the volume of water they needed, my reaction was, oh my God, that's a lot of water. But I contacted Bruce, our man at the mill, and he brought the documentation, and it wasn't even close to what the mill used to take, so we should be fine.
So they use a lot of water, so when their water comes out, is that warm water?
Their water does not come out.
Okay.
Their water does not come out. As I understand from Biofine, it goes in as a coolant and they recycle it into heat steam and other things in the mill, and then they recycle it through. They just keep recycling it through for different purposes. And when they do discharge, it's because of their process of making the fuel, and they've got several steps in it that they're taking out stuff. So what goes into wastewater treatment will be at the minimums that we have on our ordinance.
And it's gonna go out to wastewater treatment, it's not gonna go back into the stream?
No, it will not go back
Okay.
into the stream. It will go into the wastewater treatment plant.
One of the byproducts actually is gonna be de-icing chemical that FAA uses at every airport.
Right.
And so basically they've generated accidentally another market in addition to fire.
Yeah, and I think they've actually found another one since then, that they, through their investigating the waste stream and how they could get their load down to go into our wastewater treatment plant. They found some other things, but Steve probably could explain that much more comprehensively than I can. Anyway,
They were supposed to break ground the first quarter of this year. I knew that was gonna happen.
We all knew that, kind of.
We're struggling to comprehend whether they're going to break ground the second quarter of this year.
They put their start date to December at the last presentation they did to the council. They were much more optimistic in private meetings we had, but they felt if they put it out to that was much more realistic. So,
Which buys us more time because I don't think they've completed the study. Their engineering firm has to give us what they need for a wastewater treatment so we can set up the wastewater treatment plant to deal with that. And I don't believe that's happened yet.
it's in process, but they are waiting for those final figures for Biofine.
What about Form Energy? Where we at with that?
Form Energy, we're still moving forward on finalizing the lease. And right now, we know that those green energy credits and those green grants that were awarded under Biden are in a budget, how do they put it? How did they word that? A budget amendment that's being pushed forward by President Trump, and it does include eliminating that funding. But I do know that our senators have been in touch with us and are very confident that that will be one of the things that's a compromise that's pulled out because they just feel optimistic. I mean, they have what they've told me. It really doesn't. I'm not going to repeat it. I'm just going to say they're very optimistic it will be pulled out.
Well, there's a driving force behind it, resiliency within the grid itself.
Mhm.
So it has nothing to do with the town. It has to do with the infrastructure of the grid. And when wind turbines don't spin, sun doesn't shine, instead of firing up a coal plant or an oil plant down in Massachusetts somewhere, it basically pulls the energy from this storage facility.
Yeah, and that's why they think it will be pulled.
Right.
Especially after Spain lost their electric grid because they didn't have backup.
Right.
Last week.
Well, we all know that we have green energy developments all over the state of Maine that right now, that when they produce at their peak times, that goes into the grid. And if it's not, people don't use it or don't have a demand for it, it just dissipates. So that's a lot of energy that's just evaporating. So.
Well, the biggest challenge is ISO New England tries to regulate the entire New England area as far as when you need power and who's going to provide that power. And they have a demand curve that they have to hit. And so they anticipate that. And so it's a very complicated system, but it covers all of New England. And you can go on their website and basically look at that curve, and they'll tell you at 9 o'clock in the morning how much they're willing to pay for power. It may be 15 cents a kilowatt hour. But at 10 o'clock, if they sell, say, $20 per kilowatt hour, the one that got it for 15 gets 20, and it keeps going up and up. It's almost like a stock market within the power grid.
So that's a very good idea, all those ideas. So it's just a matter of finding the person to do it.
For sons.
Would it be worth exploring hiring a temporary summer worker? Then if they're just riding around or looking.
Possibly. Possibly. We have somebody in town that was a lister for a reval that was done in Enfield that I think would be ideal to do something like that. If they were willing to do it.
And they would pay for themselves by their taxes. Let's just, if they found 10 houses, when could they hit the tax rolls?
Next April 1st. Well, no, actually, we could supplement them this year.
So they pay for themselves.
Yeah. We could issue supplemental bills on them this year.
You might not even, you might not even do the whole summer if you get a month or. I don't know,
A month or two would give a good canvas of this town. And especially in the rural outlying areas where the problem exists, because it is where the problem exists, would be a tremendous benefit.
That would be money well spent.
I just think if you don't do it, you know, 2 or 3 more meetings at least.
And that's not a good thing to do.
Are we on a list for a reassessment? Are we on somebody's list 2 years down the road?
We have a bid going out to
Okay.
get on somebody's list. The problem is that everybody's got reval bids out right now,
Right.
so
Right,
I will have figures when we go to budget hearing in June.
and I did hear that, Lowell's, the people they hired, didn't meet anything in the time frame they were supposed to, and
The company that did Lowell was the same company that did Enfield.
Right.
And Enfield, I haven't heard a whole lot.
they didn't follow through with what they said, like, they didn't send out announcements that there'd be somebody come in your yard and take pictures, so people started calling the selectmen furious, because here's a guy walking around the house, outside taking pictures, and a woman's home with 2 kids alone, and, yeah, I heard a lot of different things.
Well, hopefully we can get somebody reputable.
Well, plus the people that did them isn't big enough to do us, because there's only like 300 people in Lowell.
No, but one of the
Right.
people that worked for that
Yeah.
lady.
Yeah.
Just going out and measuring and writing
Right.
down what they saw
Right.
would be totally fine to go around, and that person came in my town and
Awesome.
informed me they knew assessing better than me now because they were a lister for this reval house.
There you go.
Good.
That's the one you
So if they're
want.
better than me, let's get them on board.
So I did have one other question, just to go along with the, we're trying to think of ways for the budget, but I know, was it 2 or 3 months ago when the guy from the state of Maine came and gave
It
like
was
all,
January 26th, yeah.
and gave all the options, and one of the things that I took away from it was that he said that we should be charging 40% more for waterfront taxes. Are we looking at increasing that this year?
We're increasing everybody by 30%. If you remember, the takeaway from that was that they were going back because they said it wasn't as bad as they thought, because the sales coming through showed that it would be a little different. Well, they gave me that figure, and they've told me that to adjust 30% across the board. So that is what I'm doing.
But where the waterfront and the regular, I guess, regular houses were so offset.
Well, when they looked at it, their waterfront, they felt was showing a decline. So they felt 30% across the board was adequate.
So people on the waterfront, the taxes are going up 30%?
No.
No, everybody. Okay, so here is the deal, okay? This, I actually have an article in the Maine Municipal Magazine that comes out as far as assessing. Okay, everybody associates that with you increase your value, your taxes are going up 30%. That is not the case. If this municipal budget here and the school budget and the county budget all stayed the same, and I raised those values up, the mill rate would go down 30%, so you would pay the same. The reason your taxes go up is because your budget to run these services goes up. Your valuation is a basis on how everybody gets appropriated that tax. But because you raise the value is not why your taxes go up. It's because these budgets go up. So no, it won't be a 30% increase.
Did you read my letter to the editor?
No.
I'll send it to you.
But you explained it reasonably well.
Yeah.
I tried to keep it as simple as I could. It's what she said, but fewer words.
Okay.
So I'll send it.
It's
When's
very,
your article come out?
it's already out.
out. I can email.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to have to share with people, and I'll
This-
print out
this-
my letter.
I
too.
will say this was kind of a trap.
What was a trap?
This article,
Why?
because I was approached by MMA that they were doing an article about getting involved in municipal government, because there's a shortage of people wanting to get into the jobs associated with municipal government. So they were doing different jobs, different people who worked in, like, treasurer, public works, and what challenges they were facing today and how it was to work. And because I received the award of Assessor of the Year last year, they felt that I would be the assessor that they would send questions and answers to. And they asked me if I'd be interested in answering these questions and answers, and I said, yeah, I'll answer your questions and answers, and then we're gonna put together an article and with people's responses, and we will call you to kind of have like a introductory summary, about you and your position and everything else like that. So that was in February. I never heard another thing, so I figured they dropped the article altogether because I never heard anything. So Friday, Rick appears in my office and he goes, I can't remember how it would have, so you had an article in the Maine Municipal Magazine, and I said, not that I know of. And he said, well, you do. He said, and I think it came off quite well. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, Melissa's reading it now, and I'll bring it over when she's done, and you can read it. Well, when I looked at the magazine, it was just me, nobody else.
They didn't have room for anybody else.
It's like 4 pages.
You were so eloquent.
I'll go on in the
Yeah,
website and
But yeah,
email the link.
yeah.
Yeah, I usually get that. I didn't get it. Maybe it's with the email you sent me.
No.
Yeah, so I have a featured article in the Maine Municipal Magazine.
Good.
We'll be easily looking at it. Somebody say, all right, we'll say that. We're still 2-3 years minimum before we see,
Biofine, when they break ground, they say it will be 18 months before they're up and running.
before we ever see.
Oh, before you see anything on the taxes, it'll be, the first time you'll probably see anything on the taxes is probably April of 2026.
Is that affecting us? We borrow money, right, to help them get going? Where they put their startup date out, are we paying interest?
All of these loans that we have gotten through the different agencies have terms on them that we do not start the payback until the mill is making a profit.
Does the interest accumulating? No.
And what are we looking at for, like, what would be the tax payment for Biofine once they're up and running? Like, fully?
I can tell you that the tax payment is, the figures that I sent out to them is kind of convoluted because you have the real estate that's taxable, the building that's taxable, but the equipment will be tax exempt because it falls under the Betty program. But I still assess it and we get 50% of that back reimbursed to the municipality.
From the
So-
state?
From the state, yeah. So it's looking, right now, it's looking like the tax payment is gonna be around, I think I calculated, I don't have it in front of me, so don't hold me to it, about 200,000 on the real estate, and the equipment was over $1 million. And the other thing is they will be paying a lease payment during that time, which is equivalent, we will see lease payments before that. And we are already seeing income for option agreements and stuff from the mill site.
So the million would be like, would be 2 million, but we get half, so would it be $1 million, or would it be $1 million, we get 500,000?
Million, we get 500 bucks. I think that's what she-
No, we get $1
We'll get $1
million,
million?
yeah.
So equipment would be 2 million, we
Yeah.
get 2.
And they're not gonna wanna do a TIF where,
We're not giving them a TIF on any better equipment. We're
okay,
not giving them money back on equipment they don't pay taxes on.
Okay.
So the TIF agreement, if we devise any TIF agreements to pay for some of these loans, to help stabilize that impact on the taxpayers, it'll be based on real estate only. It won't be based on equipment. That money will go directly into the town.
and would Form, like, again, if Form Energy happens.
Farm
would
Energy
be-
right now, my first calculations of their equipment of 150 units is going to be 150 million dollars in value. And they are taxable.
Plus we get rent from Biofine.
Yeah, I said we get rent for biofine and we'll get,
76,221.
And Form Energy.
yeah, and we will have rent from Form Energy and we will have rent from Revision Energy on the community solar project that they're putting in. So yes, there are other revenues that will be
So
generated.
would you expect the Betty, the payment from Form to be in the $1 million range or less?
The thing is their battery storage includes, when they put that unit, it's a solid state unit. So when I say that value, that's their units. They're about 100,000 per unit, and they're gonna have 150 of them.
They're basically just pour a slab, and these look like Connex boxes. And they'll just stack them out there.
But if, so again, if that one happens
And they don't qualify for Betty.
oh,
They do not qualify for Betty. They're 100% taxable. I have checked with the state of Maine on that.
so with Biofine, I mean, that would actually, again, if everything worked out like that, then it would be a pretty nice offset.
But keep in the meantime, you've got all of these solar farms that are permitted and that are going in around us. They were deemed exempt, but there is a bill right now to change them from exempt to taxable. So any new ones coming online will be taxable. And each one of those projects right now, I report those to Betty because they're Betty exempt. And they're $5 million plus, so we get 50% of that back. So we are adding value right now.
The form energy is a really interesting concept. I'm not sure if you've read much about it, but
Mhm.
basically when it charges the cells, it actually creates rust on a plate.
Yep.
And then when it sends it out to the grid, it reverses that process.
That was when I was on the council, a lot of people trying to think it's lithium and they're like, it's gonna blow up the whole town. Like, that's not even the, like, if you take 2 seconds to read it. It was-
Battery storage the state of Maine has right now to base, even have an idea of the valuation is in Millinocket. They have a couple battery storage units in Millinocket area, but they are lithium based battery storage.
The closest one to this one is in Massachusetts, which won't be completed until this year. And then the only other one I think is on the west coast, West Virginia. Right.
That's where they make them.
The iron belt of the
Yeah.
country.
Okay, I have a couple other things, but not for you.
Oh, okay.
Don't look at me. Just looking back over all the budgets that we've gone through, and a couple of questions for Mr. Bronson, which you may or may not answer. With the change in personnel in the rec department and in the code department, are there any salary savings that are gonna impact this budget?
A little bit.
So that'll be in the final.
Well, maybe with code enforcement, they're putting in a temporary interim person. We are advertising right now to find a permanent person, so we don't know where that goes. Regarding Parks and Recreation, yes, we're saving a few dollars, but 6 months, that increases.
Okay, so not really, not significant.
Nothing you can count.
The next question, which also relates to salaries, I see that the, police chief recommended an increase for one individual. Shouldn't that increase be in the personnel budget and maybe part of the merit pool?
It's a different increase than the non-union across the board. This is his recommendation regarding that one person because he thinks she's that badly underpaid. And I actually cut the amount he wanted to increase it by half.
Okay, but should that stay in the police budget or should it be, it will stay? Okay. And then I think you were recommending, was it a 5%?
5%.
And is that currently in the personnel budget or it hasn't been added yet? It is in there. And then just a comment, which I don't really have a recommendation. I felt that the police budget was really, really high. And maybe I couldn't hear all the explanation of all the different things, but I would suggest that maybe they be prioritized and some this year and some next year. That's all.
That's distinctly a possibility. New department heads frequently arrive somewhere, want to make changes, and they cost money. We are very much right in that at the moment with the police department, and I had told them very unlikely all of it will stay. And he said, well, I put in what I think I should have, and you'll do what you do.
Okay. 'Cause- And I tried to, and it didn't come out very clear, I tried to say, okay, here's the budget as it exists right now, given all the warts and things that, well, this is a mistake, that shouldn't be there, whatever. I said, okay, so I would recommend that we take out, and for, I'll just give examples. The police scheduling, it's high. Some of, I took half of the wish list from the police, not saying which was which, but just half of it. Same on the equipment. There was a $10,000 error in the rec truck. We actually recommended to increase the reevaluation, so that kind of zeroed out those other. So I tried to do the plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. And at the end, I ended up right where we were. So.
Net zero.
Yeah, so, I don't know. And well, Rick has heard the arguments about the police and fire. I'm not gonna go through all that here. I maintain that we're leaving money on the table. He says not, but that would cover the difference right there in the increase. The only other thing is like, if your spouse said, we just lost our savings, just lost X, we just can't afford it, go forth and cut the family budget wherever you can. That was my last plea, to try to hold it down. So, but there's not tons of fat in here that I could see. There really isn't.
I haven't seen in the years I've been here, there was a budget that did have that.
Not much. I mean, they are pretty tight, so.
I mean, and again, but things here or there, but we added $50,000, so that
Right.
kind of offsets anything that we could really cut. But the only way to really hold the line is same budget as last year plus the wage increases that are already built in. I mean, that's the only way you can even attempt to.
So you would be saying they're the union wage increases that are already in contract?
And any of the ones that already happened, the non-union personnel, but again, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying that's the only way you can kind of semi-balance.
Or you cut services.
Yeah.
Right, and
As everyone says, nobody wants to cut services.
nobody wants to cut services. I mean, she might say, well, we don't need all these parks that we have. Well, all the families feel that we need the parks. We don't need all these boat launches. We don't need this, but there's no common agreement.
That's correct.
And if you wait to plow the roads,
Yeah.
I tell people, just wait, we'll let snow get down and then we'll plow the roads and we'll go out once a storm and have fun. And just save $100,000 a year. And people don't like that idea.
That's all I got. I won't be here Thursday. Have fun. I'll be on a plane, so.
That's why I was wondering.
That's why I had to get this all out tonight.
That's why I was curious when we have more revenue like from the mills rate, 'cause I don't see a lot really to cut, but a lot of people
we're
are
working on
struggling.
it. All I can tell
Yeah.
you is we're working on it. And I can tell you with the grant money that we've got and the work that we have done at the mill, that long you look at it, we wouldn't even be close to developing that mill if we weren't as successful with the grants. Which, because we have been so successful, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the town of Lincoln has been identified by the Environmental Protection Agency as the little town that could. So I am off to Chicago in August to speak of why the town of Lincoln has had such success in grants.
I see another article.
Yes.
That she's been tricked into writing for them.
I am going to be accompanied with this presentation with the help of EMDC, who has been one of our partners on that with Vicki Rushbelt. And we will be on a panel with another small town in Oregon who has had similar success. And I would like to say it's an all-girl panel, just saying.
I have a question. So is there a mutual agreement for you to bring this person on to help you? Or does that, do you two need, is it the decision made
No,
about
No.
getting help?
Council,
Okay.
council has to approve the budget, so if
Right.
they
No, but
decide.
even the person we want to get on the side there, the one that is the,
Council still has to approve.
oh, okay.
council would still
Has to approve it, and if they don't approve it, then she can work on volunteer side chicks. Or guys. We know one that will rat people out. Say that out loud.
Really? I'll drive her. Well, because I think you're right. I think for safety reasons, it shouldn't be one person. I think there should be.
You know, I started doing assessing 33 years ago, and I had absolutely no problem
Right.
going in rural areas by myself, and, you know, I mean, for the whole day.
Right.
I didn't have an issue with that at all, but I'm gonna tell you with the activities that I've seen now at residences and stuff, I don't think it's good for anybody to go alone.
No,
No, I don't either. I don't either. And you know, like these, some of these driveways and stuff, you don't know where you're driving into.
but if there's some that can be
Right.
done on paper
Right.
and using the maps,
Right.
that doesn't
Right.
require somebody to know.
There is a thought,
And the drone would help too.
The drone.
there is a thought that, the town of Medway did a revow. And when they did a revow, they did not go to the individual properties. They sent out a notice to the people that they could take a choice. They could have somebody come and go through their house and look at it, or they could fill out this form that specified everything that they had in the house. And they actually had good success rate of people returning those forms and having, you know, it didn't eliminate a drive-by to make sure that the structures they listed were there. But I mean, a lot of the information that came back was accurate.
Good pictures, don't ask for pictures.
I don't believe they asked for pictures, but pictures say a lot. And you know, when people list properties, there's always pictures.
How much does the inside, I mean, I know like obviously for like down to studs, you know, that would affect value, but do you
Okay.
actually look like, do they have,
So if you have,
Yeah,
if you have a ranch style house that has, okay, this may be offensive to some people, but if you have somebody that has a ranch style house that has your 70s cabinets and your vinyl flooring and your carpets and, you know, your clamshell molding and, you know, the,
Describe my house.
She's kind of describing mine too a little bit.
you know, and the tub shower unit that hasn't been changed forever, that has caulking issues and things like that. And the old windows that you can see that the seals have broken. And then you go into a house that has same square footage, that has all new high-grade laminate floors, has new cabinets, has quartz countertops, has updated heating systems, updated plumbing, you know, I mean, you know, towel shower, everything else like that, and a finished basement with a recreational area and stuff like that. Yeah, it will make a difference. It'll make a difference in the grading of the property. And when you do the grading, when you provide that mathematical equation that I keep talking about that's applied to all properties, they get a factor applied because they're a higher grade.
You can do both. You can have the person looking at the, or three things, looking at the paper, driving around in pairs, and pick a quadrant of the town and send out the letters and see what comes back. You could try.
I need more postage money.
I wonder if, like, if you went to the post office, would they be legally allowed to give you the mailing address of everybody in Lincoln?
I don't think.
You can buy those for peanuts and from direct mail companies, peanuts.
I mean, you get some people on there that was renting, but
Well, she's
everybody
got,
gets
she's
mail.
got- she's
Like,
got the address.
I've got
the
pretty
addresses.
much the listing of every property. What I don't have is whether they've improved their property or not. That's the big thing.
So when we do an appraisal here, the people are gonna go in the houses? Because in, the one in Lowell, they didn't go in the houses, they just measured outside.
They should go in the houses,
Okay,
because how can they grade them appropriately if they don't go inside?
well, that's where I get confused and people tell me it doesn't make a difference, so, yeah,
Well, certain things don't.
Yeah.
It does. Okay,
Right.
so for
I would
instance,
think so.
I have an example that I've used for years and years and years, okay? There was a house in the town of Lincoln that outside, it was a beautiful cape. Had top of the line siding, decking, looked great. Walked inside, the inside was absolutely 100% unfinished with plastic over insulation. That's the difference. That's why you need to go inside. That is why you need to go inside. Because you can have a perfectly good-looking shell
Right,
and have nothing done inside, and you can have just the reverse. You can have
right.
tie that on the outside and have the inside completely finished, top of the line, just, I'm not putting my siding on because it looks unfinished and the assessor won't come by.
Right, or no front steps.
I've actually heard that. I've actually had people tell me, well, I'm not putting siding on my house because the assessor won't assess it till it's complete. And I said, oh, no, I don't know who told you that. But
That was the case in Scarborough many years ago, and that's why so many houses in Scarborough had no front stairs.
Did you swag an average cost, time and travel to do an assessment, let's say of, one of the newer houses in
to
town?
do an assessment and write it up, in other words, go see it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then write it up and do the whole thing.
Yeah.
To do it properly and make sure that you have applied the right ratio and that you can check the neighborhood to make sure that you're not overvaluing it and it's consistent and equitable. It would probably take you an hour a parcel.
Okay. Just crazy marketing idea. Why not say that if you fill out this form and send us pictures, we'll rebate X dollars on your taxes, because then you're bringing them in, you're getting the revenue up front, you're getting the tax money up front, and then you provide, but they're basically paying
You
themselves to do
couldn't-
the assessment.
Because of the Constitution, you can't say you're giving them a tax break. That
Okay,
can
well-
only be done by your
What would we
legislature.
call it?
So what you could do is, geez, I'm not sure what you could
We
do.
would pay you a fee.
We will pay you a fee to do the work for us.
There you go.
I mean, Cindy will kick your butt.
Why?
Because she can blame it on me.
Checks.
Done. I didn't.
You gotta think outside the box.
I don't know why you're gonna kick my
You gotta
butt.
think outside the box.
We gotta get the money coming in.
That's right, and this,
Get these
and
things
it's the time
assessed.
value of money, the sooner you get the
Right.
taxes on the books coming in, the better off you
I'm
are.
feeling it here. I think I'm gonna take my papers and run.
Miss Miette?
I think it could be done. I don't know how profitable it will be, but I think it can be
But
done.
if everyone can do one, then it's gonna.
Well,
Look, with the
But-
problem people are having, towns are having, getting somebody lined up to do a revow, this might be a possibility, for the interim, until it can be done.
I mean, there'd be some work on your part once you receive. the paperwork.
She's already said it. You check, but you can
But you're
say,
saving me
you can drive
going out
me.
running the roads and trying to find the time to get out there and review it. So you're saving me that time, so.
And do it a lake at a time. By the time you
I'm
get
gonna
to,
tell you which lake you should start with first,
Which one?
Crooked.
by the time you get to the last lake, they'll be knocking your door down.
You should start with Crooked and
Okay,
then go to Upper Pond.
no pun intended, go for it.
Mhm.
What do you got to lose?
Sounds like you have a plan.
Well, we have a plan, but I'm not so sure that table's fine in that. And we don't have the influence that table does.
I'm just gonna stay clear of Melissa. I could just see.
Melissa, 300 checks coming, Melissa, requests coming across in these
Melissa.
desks. It all pays the same. All pays the same.
I'll just
You
give
can
her.
get a side chick too. I'm getting silly now.
Yes.
Chair.
Right, so
You
you
wanna
have more
put plug on
questions
me?
for the TIF budget or economic development? Good discussion.
No capital items, right? Nothing for economic.
Okay.
Nothing for economic development.
Not for TIF, no, no capital, no.
Perfect.
I didn't see one.
We're adjourned.